So today we're going to try and unlock the machinery of Israeli statecraft. We're going to unpack the internal power structures, the long-term strategies, and the historical patterns that really shape its actions. And we're doing it all through the incredible insights of a former top diplomat who had a front-row seat to the whole thing.
All right, let's just jump right in with a statement from the ambassador that honestly gets to the very heart of this entire analysis. He argues that to really understand what's happening now, you have to grasp this decades-long strategy of division, when he claims was actively encouraged by Israel. It's a pretty bold claim, so let's unpack the evidence he lays out.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start on the inside with Israel's pretty unique system of self-correction. Then we'll explore that crucial, often tense relationship between its politicians and its generals. From there, we'll track the growing power of the prime minister, see how that power was used to shape a strategy of division, and finally, uncover a really controversial idea that has been echoing through Israeli history for more than 70 years.
Okay, first up, accountability. You know, Israel has this powerful tradition of looking itself in the mirror after major crises, especially military ones. And look, it's a system designed not just to point fingers, but to actually learn and adapt.
And this is a very established part of the state's machinery. We're talking about something that was formalized back in 1968, and since then we've seen about 16 of these official commissions of inquiry. Each one is basically a massive deep dive meant to figure out exactly what went wrong, so it hopefully won't happen again.
But here's where the ambassador points to a major break from that tradition. Just look at the contrast. Back in 2006, after the Lebanon War, the Winograd Commission held pretty much everyone accountable, from the prime minister on down. Now, fast forward to today. In the aftermath of October 7th, Prime Minister Netanyahu has, according to our source, resisted forming a similar kind of official inquiry, and that is a huge departure from what's normally been done.
You know, this tension over accountability, it leads us right to the heart of the Israeli power structure, that super complex relationship between the politicians and the generals. So the big question is, who really calls the shots?
Well, to answer that, you'd have to get an invitation to the political kitchen. Now, this isn't some formal committee you're going to find on an organizational chart. It's this powerful, informal tradition that David Ben-Gurion himself started. It's where the key ministers, we're talking defense, finance, foreign affairs, all get together to make the state's most critical decisions. It's really where military and civilian power hammer things out.
So what kind of intelligence gets served in that kitchen? Well, there's a pecking order, and it might actually surprise you. I mean, Mossad gets all the glory in the spy movies, right? But the ambassador makes it crystal clear. It's military intelligence, or Amman, whose assessment carries the most weight. When the different agencies don't agree, the political leadership almost always listens to Amman.
So okay, we've got the committees and the intelligence agencies, but what about the person sitting at the head of the table? Because let me tell you, the power of the Israeli prime minister has gone through an absolutely radical transformation over the years.
And this timeline here really shows you how. Ben-Gurion started out as what you'd call first among equals. I mean, he was so constrained, he actually had to resign just to force a minister out. Then, everything changes in 1981. This is the turning point under Menachem Begin, with a law that dramatically centralized power, and this decades-long power grab has led, in the ambassador's own words, to an office that now wields almost dictatorial power.
And what does that kind of power look like in practice? Well, think about it. The prime minister personally appoints and can fire the heads of Mossad, Shin Bet, and Amman. They choose the governor of the central bank. They have the final say on pretty much every major appointment in the state. The crucial thing to get here is that this incredible concentration of power isn't the way it's always been. It's a much more modern development.
Okay, so let's pivot. We've seen the internal machinery. Now let's see how that machinery has been aimed externally. The ambassador argues that all this centralized power was channeled into pursuing a single decades-long strategy, keeping the Palestinians politically broken and divided.
And he breaks it down into 4 pretty clear steps. First, an alleged initial support for Hamas specifically to act as a rival to the PLO. Then, after the 2007 split, a policy of cementing that division. The third step was about maintaining Hamas's rule in Gaza. And the final piece, systematically weakening the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. The whole goal, he argues, was to make sure there was never a single, unified Palestinian body to negotiate with. This whole strategy was really based on one core assumption, which is summed up by this frankly chilling quote. Just 6 days before October 7th, a top Israeli official reportedly said this, and it reflects this widespread belief that Hamas was contained, that their desire for money and power made them predictable and ultimately made them deterred.
And that brings us to our final and maybe the most controversial piece of this whole puzzle.
It's an idea that the ambassador claims has been a quiet but constant part of the strategic conversation for over 70 years, the displacement of Palestinians.
Now take a good look at this timeline, because it really shows this is not some new or fringe idea. It pops up in 1955 with a U.S. proposal. It's there again in 1972. It comes back in 2004 with the Greater Gaza Plan. It was part of the conversation during the Trump era, and today you're hearing it voiced by current ministers under the term voluntary migration. As the ambassador points out, the language might change, but the fundamental idea has remained remarkably consistent.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean? The ambassador's central argument is that you simply cannot understand today's events if you don't understand the inner workings of this state machinery. From his viewpoint, what we're seeing isn't random or just a reaction. No, it's the product of decades of strategic choices, of internal power struggles, and of historical ideas that just refuse to go away.
So a former top diplomat has essentially laid out the historical playbook for us, from its internal systems of power to its external strategies of division and displacement. And that leaves all of us with the one essential question. Now that we've had a look under the hood at the machinery of the state, what does it tell us about the road ahead?